Good evening. We welcome you all to the meeting of the West Valley City Council. Our meeting is being held electronically. Council members are in various locations, but all participating electronically. We'll begin our meeting with the official electronic statement of our electronic meeting. Pursuant to Utah Code, West Valley City has determined that this meeting will be held electronically without an anchor location given the ongoing novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. West Valley City has determined the pandemic presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at an anchor location. This meeting will be held electronically. Members of the press and public are invited to view this meeting live on YouTube at www.youtube.com/user/WVCTV. To participate in the public comment period or scheduled public hearings, please visit www.wvc-ut.gov/public comment or contact the city recorder. Thank you. We do state that we have all council members present along with our city manager and city recorder participating electronically. We will next have, as we've been doing for a while, our Inside the City video.
People tend to think that child abuse has a certain face or space, income level, or race. It does not. Child abuse is in every environment, every home. We see it everywhere. Today we're out with West Valley City planting pinwheel gardens for April's Child Abuse Prevention Month. The city's partnered and done pinwheel gardens for 6 or 7 years, and we put them on display in front of the city building. And that means there was substantiated evidence to prove that there was abuse going on in that home, whether that's sexual, physical, emotional, neglect. That's what these numbers represent today. With kids not being in schools, we did see a decrease in reporting because there weren't as many faces seeing those kids. With everything opening back up, we plan to see an influx of those cases, but there will always be cases that are unnoticed or unknown. We planted 151 pinwheels, which represent the 756 children that were confirmed victims of child abuse in West Valley City last year, and we planted one for every 5 children. They say when in doubt, always call it in. It's better for the kids' sake to call and have it not be a case of abuse than to not call and have it be a case of abuse.
We know it exists. We see it all the time. But now we've got groups that are actually trying to get prevention, trying to teach about child abuse, how to avoid it.
Every child has the right to wake up every morning and not be in fear of what's going to happen to them during the day.
We're trying to recognize and raise awareness for each of those individual faces and children, because it's sometimes easy to get caught up in numbers, but they're not numbers, they're individual children, and we really want to raise awareness and recognize that.
Thank you. Going down our agenda, we'll hear more on that shortly, but our next item is approval of the minutes of March 23rd, or action on them.
Move for approval of those minutes.
Second.
Properly before us, without objection, then the minutes will be approved. Hearing no objection, then the voting is unanimous. And so having that taken care of, we do have a proclamation from the city regarding the Child Abuse Prevention Month proposal. And Councilman Christensen is going to read that.
Before reading the proclamation, Mayor, just personally as a 29-year veteran of public schools and seeing child abuse in all forms most of the time, I am happy to read this proclamation recognizing the month of April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas the children of West Valley City are the future of our state's success, and investing in their general welfare, safety, and livelihood are of utmost priority, and all children deserve to grow up in a safe and nurturing environment to assure they reach their full potential as they grow and develop. And the protection of children and strengthening of families is of concern and responsibility of all West Valley City citizens, because the wellness of children affects our lives now and will continue to affect us in the future. And there are hundreds of cases of child abuse in West Valley City. There were hundreds of cases of child abuse in West Valley City last year, each of which impact an entire family and affect the community as a whole. And child abuse respects no racial, religious, socioeconomic, or geographic boundaries. And all citizens of West Valley City need to become more aware of child abuse and its prevention within their respective communities and actively encourage and support parents to raise their children in a safe and nurturing environment. And preventing child abuse requires each member of the community to be attentive to the problems of families around them and commit to do everything they can to help. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of West Valley City, Utah, do hereby proclaim and recognize April 2021 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And we call upon all our citizens to renew their commitment to be educated on the impact of child abuse and join in working for its prevention within our community.
Thank you. Certainly, any case of child abuse is too much. It is an unfortunate part of our society, and the more we can focus on it, or shine a bright light on it to help prevent any case of child abuse, is a laudable and worthwhile effort. So we're happy to support that. Don, thank you for reading that. With that, next we go to our public comment period. And Nicole, who do we have online for our public comment?
Here we have one speaker tonight, Jim Visak.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do want to thank the city of West Valley for their proclamation making this month Child Abuse Awareness Month. I did plan to come out and be part of putting the pinwheels in. I requested the time and information, but was not provided with that. Tonight you'll be voting on ratifying the amendment for the standing and parking, the new ordinance. This is a long time overdue. People park right up next to driveways. It's hard to get in and out. If you have an RV, a trailer, it's almost impossible. I'm hoping, though, in the next year's budget, parking compliance, they get 2 more specialists budgeted in that budget. We're putting a large burden on them to do compliance enforcement. They need more help. That's all I have for this part. I will speak when it comes budget time.
Thank you. And that was all, so that concludes our public comment period. We'll next go to our agenda ordinances, yes. Excuse me, public hearings. Our first public and only public hearing tonight will be regarding the reopening of our fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. This is to consider ordinance 21-11. Our fiscal year, of course, goes from July 1st to June 30th each year. During the course of that year, many items occur, additional grants, additional approvals of expenditures, changes that take place, rollovers of funding from one project to another. And so 4 times approximately each year, we go and do a revision to the budget. We have, and it's attached to our agenda, available for the public to review, those changes to our budget. You will note on there the various items. Many of those have already been discussed by this council over the course of the last quarter. And so there's nothing that stands out as too unusual, projects that we move forward or modify, new grants coming in, et cetera. So I don't think there's anything controversial on here. We had a few questions, but mostly these are pretty minor routine items. With that introduction then, council members, anything else you want to add or highlight? If not, then we'll turn to our city recorder and see who is here to speak on the budget.
Like just Mr. Busak, sir. Jim, you can go ahead and speak.
Thank you. Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. The initial adopted budget was just over $85 million. The first opening, you added approximately 1.5 million. The next one was just under or around 900,000. This one is almost $4 million. This is approximately $6 million that was added to the original budget. When all but approximately 2 million of it should and or could have been part of that original budget. When will West Valley City set and stick to the original adopted budget without making changes except for emergencies and or land acquisitions or a very special, unique, needed item? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that was the only one. So we will close the public comment period on the budget and come back to the council.
Mayor, noting that this budget was first proposed during the pandemic when we all tightened our belts thinking that we would not have sales tax revenue and then reserved items for should those monies come in. Excuse me. I think the budget's appropriate, the amendment's appropriate to go ahead and move for approval of ordinance 21-11.
Second.
It's properly before us, and I think I appreciate that motion to approve it. Having spent many years working with budgets in my career as my background as a CPA, the process we have in this city is a very reasonable process. Many of the items, we have to be careful because on how we view those as though they are mistakes. They're not mistakes. They're to deal with the reality of a growing, changing city, just as rollovers They really didn't change a budget. We just carry those forward from sometimes another year or another project. Grants, we deal with those when they're approved. We can't anticipate those. Some we get every year, but many grants are, unknown. And there's no guarantee we will get those grants. And we do take care of things as they go, but I believe in the concept of having an ongoing dynamic budget. That is the reason we have a council, is to review that, and a city manager to propose what needs to be done to meet the needs of our citizens in an ongoing capacity. So just to make people aware that although we tend to make this somewhat routine, and it is also required by state law, and we do stay within the guidelines of what we have been elected to do. With that then, hearing no further comments, I will turn to our city recorder for the roll call vote.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Bueller.
Aye.
Councilman Hune.
Aye.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt.
Yes.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next, we have Ordinance 21-12. This is a change to our municipal code. This is a change to add a requirement that says that you cannot park a vehicle within 5 feet of a driveway on either side. We have a number of instances where our streets are starting to fill up, and parking is become a premium, and parking right up to a driveway on many streets creates a significant safety hazard for being able to back out of a person's driveway. We looked at various distances. Sight lines are pretty tight, even within the 5 feet, but we think this will be a good change to allow some sight or visibility when one is pulling out of a parking space, especially whenever someone parks one of those big jacked up trucks, pickups. I can't see around them or over them. Anyway, so much for that introduction. Yeah, it's probably easier to look under them if I just open the door and lean down. So with that introduction to the council.
Mayor, I would move for approval of ordinance 21-12.
Second.
Properly before us, any further comments? Hearing none, to our city recorder for the vote.
Councilman Nordfelt.
Yes.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Hune.
Aye.
Councilman Bueller.
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang.
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
And Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we go to Resolution 21-44. This is to award a contract to Diggit Excavation for the construction of a storm drain. And this is in the Tecumseh Street area. Guess I got that right. I always have to stop and think about it. $225,000. As the city grows and changes, many places in the city, storm water runoff simply entered into empty fields. And as we've grown, we've had to actually create storm drains, put that in so that people's yards and so forth are not flooded, but water has a place to go. Just a part of being in the city. And so that's what this will do. This Diggit Excavation won the award. And so we'll authorize up to $225,000 on this project. With that introduction then, council?
Move
Mayor, I
for
move for
resolution 2144.
second.
Properly before us, hearing no further comments to our city recorder.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we have on our consent agenda, and that's a flag to say this is a very routine thing that we do over and over. This is to, on Resolution 21-45, to authorize the city to accept a warranty deed from TR West Valley. And this is in conjunction with the right-of-way on the north side, the north frontage road of the 201. And there are some changes occurring there, and we needed to get some additional right-of-way and so forth. So this is to take care of that. That's probably all I'm going to say. It's pretty routine. With that, to the council.
I move for approval of resolution 21-45 on the consent agenda. Second.
Properly before us, hearing no further comments to our city recorder for the roll call vote.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Bueller,
Aye.
Councilwoman Lang,
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
and Mayor Bigelow.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. That completes our regularly scheduled agenda. We don't have a need for a closed session. We had one earlier. Any final comments or a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Without objection, then, we will stand adjourned. Hearing no objections, that passes unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you all for listening in and participating tonight, and have a good evening.